School of Technology. He's now at Cornell. He heads up some fancy institute that got interested in 3D printers, and for the last number of years he's been kind of making these kits and encouraging people to have their own 3D printers, and for the long time what they made were circuit boards and funny objects that nobody could get much interested in, and then the day came and they began to experiment with food. So Hod, will you take the story on from there?
It's a pleasure to be here and talk to you a little bit about some of the work we're doing in the area of 3D printing. 3D printing is one of those technologies that are universal. They touch almost everything, and one of the messages I'd like to convey to you is that it's going to affect every discipline, it's going to touch every industry, and it's an optimistic message, it's a happy message, unlike some of the things we've heard yesterday, and I hope it's going to change things for the better. So this is, it's really about a new kind of economy that is based on the idea that people can come up with concepts and using a machine on their desktop, press a button and make that idea into a physical reality. And it is indeed something that we've been thinking about for a long time. There's a lot of science fiction stories and themes that have to do with this idea of a machine that can make anything. Invariably, most science fiction stories end up with humanity blowing themselves up using a machine like that, but nonetheless we want to pursue this and try to make something useful with it. So how can we make something like that in reality? So just to get us all on the same page, what is a 3D printer? So we're all familiar with a regular inkjet printer that spits out droplets of ink on a piece of paper and makes a picture. So 3D printer is essentially the same idea, but instead of droplets of ink, it spits out droplets of plastic, layer by layer, makes a three-dimensional object, a real physical three-dimensional object. Not a picture of a cup of coffee, but a coffee cup for real, and something that you can hold in your hand and actually drink coffee out of. So it's a real physical thing. And while you're at it, you might as well make some crazy shapes. You don't have to stick to a conventional cup. This is a real thing that somebody has made. I don't know if it's useful, but it's certainly something that you can try to drink out of. But the real idea is that you can go from a concept to a physical object very quickly. This is just researching for this talk. I found this sketch, and here's the three-dimensional coffee cup made out of it. So this is a single cup, but it's all made there. So you can imagine that if somebody wakes up in the middle of the night with this crazy idea, they can actually make it within a few hours. They can have their idea physically instantiated. In fact, there's this kind of competitions now on coffee cups. These are all real physical coffee cups that people are designing all over the world and printing, and the sky is the limit. So what does a machine look like? There are a couple dozen different 3D printers out there right now, a huge price range, but this is typically what it looks like. It's more or less like a microwave oven, and it literally prints the three-dimensional object that you have. Now, also, most of these objects start off as a kind of a file, a blueprint, an electronic blueprint in the computer, and that is translated into a physical object. Here you see the CAD file and the printed object. This is a kind of art piece printed in bronze. So why now? So 3D printing has been around for, I'd say, 3 decades or so, starting in the late 80s, but it has gradually progressed and caught on in the last couple of years. Here's this is the number of Google searches. You can see they pick up around 2007, and this is more or less a transition that's equivalent to about the 1975 in computers, when computers switched from mainframes to desktops. And this is about what's happening now. These 3D printers used to be very big and expensive, a kind of mainframe level, required a lot of skilled technicians to operate. They were slow and so forth. And now they're transitioning to the desktop scale, to home markets and so forth. And we're going to see how this progresses. So it's really going to change everything. So what can printers do right now? They can work with almost any material. These are just plastic parts printed with 10 micron precision, so they're very, very smooth, very precise. You can see you can make a huge range of things. You can also print in metal. These are titanium shoes, and you can see the heel here is printed. It's really something you couldn't make any other way. There's just no other way to make this. And again, this is somebody's idea. They instantiated. You can print in clay. You can even print in wood. This is kind of processed wood. It's 3D printed. You can print in glass. There's really no material almost you can't print with. You can print large scale, such as this kind of cement bench. And even larger, this is kind of plaster and the architectural scale 3D printers. And you can print small, and this is all on the scale of 1 millimeter with details at the micron scale. So all scales, all materials, it's really a fascinating technology. We've been using it in the lab to print robots quite a bit, so we've become addicted to this thing. We need let's say we need a tube for our robot. We won't walk down the hall to the stock room. We'll just sketch out a tube and hit the print button. And here you can see what this is a time-lapse photo of printing a robot, and here's the robot printed. So we really, it's really unleashed an incredible amount of creativity in terms of designing all kinds of shapes of robots that are all entirely printed, including these kind of crazy shapes that would be a nightmare to fabricate using conventional technology, including this 3-gram flapping, hovering machine who's 90% printed, including the wings and so forth. So what's really interesting about this technology is its ability also, more recently, to combine multiple materials into the same print. So it's not just about making